Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host for today. We are talking UFC Vegas 107, headlined by Erin Blanchfield and Maycee Barber. We're going to be breaking down 4 plays here on the show today. Now, last weekend, we were off. It was Memorial Day weekend. It was nice. Got outside, kickoff of the summer, touched some grass, and just good feelings, good vibes. Summer has started here. Also, we've got some great UFC events coming up, especially next weekend, a stacked card, a card I do love from a betting perspective. We will talk about that next weekend. This weekend here, already have plays locked in, link down below, and going to be adding to that pack as we get closer to fight night. So with that being said, let's dive into the main event of the evening between Erin Blanchfield and Maycee Barber. Now, you got Blanchfield here minus 245. On the comeback here, you've got Maycee Barber plus 200. Now, these females, young, rising talents within this division here, 26, 27 years old. And we do know what we're getting with Blanchfield here. She's a wrestler. She's going to look to push forward. She's going to look to crash the pocket, pressure you, look for takedowns, and look for that control time. And that's really her bread and butter overall. She has added a lot more volume to her striking, but pretty much she is looking to wrestle and get this fight to the ground. Now, going back watching tape, I got to say, I don't know if it's a hot take, but I wasn't that impressed with Blanchfield's wrestling now, and it really the success that she has had in the wrestling. Now recently she fought Rose Namajunas. She was 2 for 8 on takedowns, did get 8 minutes of control time, but there Rose, just doesn't have the physicality, the strength. Really she's, great at range boxing, light on her feet and all those things that she does do well. But, you do see here that Blanchfield, doesn't really find that much success when she really dives in with her wrestling. And over her last 6 fights, Erin has 4 takedowns over her last 6 fights with 33 attempts. So she's 4 for 33 on takedown attempts. Now, she has found success. She has had some victories overall, but the wrestling and the takedown ability might be a little bit in question here. Now, prior to the Rose fight, the last time that she had 2 or more takedowns was back in 2021 against Miranda Maverick, friend of the show. That's a long time ago. So, for someone who pretty much gets 1 takedown now, we're basically talking over, averaging less than 1 takedown over her last 6 fights is very, very concerning, really overall. Now, Barber does have the strength and physicality, and I think that's where she can counter some of this. I think she's going to be able to kind of, get out of certain spots, muscle her way out of certain spots. And yes, not the greatest look that, Andrea Lee took her down 5 times, but that was also a couple of years ago. I do think that you're seeing Barber starting to really hit her stride and get more into her prime. Now, also, even when she's been taken down, she does have good get-up games, good scrambling ability, works back to her feet pretty well. And I do think that she can, if this fight gets to the ground, I think she's knowledgeable enough to stay safe and work back to her feet. Now, if this fight does play out on the feet, I do favor Maycee here. I think that she's the more, better technical striker between these two. I think she's got the cleaner combinations, the harder hitter between these two. And I think that's going to make the difference a lot here. Now, both of these females do like to come forward, do like the pressure here, but I do think that Maycee, with the better striking, with the harder hit, is going to be able to keep kind of Blanchfield at times on that back foot. And I think she can find some success there. I don't know if she'll look for takedowns, but I do think that she can find success here. So in this spot, I do think that Blanchfield should be the favorite, but this is a very wide line to me here. I think it should be closer. Dogger pass spot here. So I'm going Maycee Barber to get the job done at plus 200. Next one here we're going to talk about is going to be Allan Nacimento minus 155 against Jafel Filho plus 130. Now, this line opened up Nacimento minus 120. Money has consistently come in right now on Nacimento. And I am seeing, minus 165s, minus 170 is out there as well. So the price is starting to get a little bit wider. Now, I get it. Nacimento, high-level jiu-jitsu guy, slick transitions, the guy, is able to get control time, opportunistic with his submission game. There are those things that he does have. But one of the big issues here, and this is going to be anybody who talks about this fight, is the fact that he has multiple red flags, and the big one being his inactivity. Now, last time, his last fight was back in January 14th of 2023. We're talking roughly 2.5 years ago. He has not been in the cage. That, I think, is a very bad sign overall. And not only that, but it's the fact that he has had multiple cancellations. He has had 4 booked fights since the fight in 2023. 3 of the times was him canceling. And that's, again, you don't know if it's injuries, if it's, what's going on, illness, what's happening. But it's not good seeing a guy over multiple years just canceling fights and just not getting in the cage. Ring rust is real. We've talked to fighters multiple times. You hear fighters talk about it a lot of times in interviews. That an extended time away is going to be taxing and is going to cause issues coming back into the cage. Now, Nacimento also, you got to add in, is 2-2 in the UFC. His UFC debut was back in 2018. So basically he, has had 4 fights in roughly 7 years. And that again is another problem here where the guy's just not active overall. Even his 2 wins, you go back, Jake Hadley, who's no longer in the UFC, he goes out there, gets the victory, but he landed 19 significant strikes against Jake Hadley over 3 rounds. That is astronomically low for a guy to get a victory there. But yes, he had takedowns, control time, all those things, but just the inactivity there once he has those positions was a little concerning. Now, Carlos Hernandez, he also beat 2. Hernandez probably not UFC caliber overall. He's 2-4 out of his last 6. So yeah, he subbed him there. Carlos Hernandez, as we saw recently, he can get bullied and just choked out easily. But you also got to add in the fact that Nacimento, yes, there's the concerns on inactivity and there's, hasn't fought much, all these things, but also you add in just the low volume output that he does have. And I think that against Jafel Filho, who is a guy who's scrappy, who's going to push a pace, who's going to come at you, who's going to be the better striker between these two, better shot selection, and is going to be aggressive, I think is really going to cause problems for Nacimento's low volume, who's going to absolutely look for those takedowns. I think that's where you're going to see Jafel find success here. So in this spot here, I am going Jafel Filho plus 130 to get the job done. Next one here we're going to talk about is going to be Maycee Chiasson minus 115. On the comeback here, we got Ketlen Vieira minus 105. Now, there was a point where I did think that Ketlen was going to, be the next big thing in the division. There was a point. She came into the UFC. I was joking around calling her the baby Amanda Nunes. She had physicality. She looked like she had some power, had some strength, and looked like it was, she was building into her career here. 4 straight wins. Kat Zingano she beats. Sarah McMahon, was beating, some notable recognizable names. And then she gets absolutely sparked out against Irene Aldana, and that seemed to really change the trajectory of her career and just didn't seem like she was the same after that. And, since then she's 4-4 in the UFC with some suspect wins. And we even go back, look, she beat 2 aged out females and Miesha Tate and Holly Holm. Both of those situations, she kind of held Miesha up against a fence, held, Holly for basically the entire fight up against a fence, just kind of dirty boxing up against a fence, winning positionally. It was a very uneventful fight. Yes, she got the victory, but it wasn't really a great performance from her overall. And you even go back and look at the fact that the 4 wins that she did have since getting knocked out, all of those fights, she was outstruck. She got the decision because she was able to win positionally. She found some takedowns. So, credit to her on that. But, getting outstruck in pretty much every fight and still getting the nod, that can't keep happening. There's a point where it's just not going to work out for her overall. Now you got Macy here. She's 5-2 out of her last 7. And even her 2 losses, are pretty credible, when you look at it, because, yeah, she lost to Aldana as well, and she lost to Raquel Pennington. But the Aldana fight, she was beating Aldana. To my account, she was beating her. She was winning the fight. It was late in the fight there. Had Aldana down on her back. Aldana throws an up kick into the liver, I believe it was, and puts out Chiasson. So credit to her on that. And then also, even the Raquel Pennington fight, Chiasson won that first round and then gets subbed in the second round. So it's, she had some losses there, but she has definitely had a really good account of herself throughout. Now, stylistically, I do think that Chiasson is better everywhere. I think she's, going to be better on the feet. I think she's going to be better on the ground. I think that Ketlen, very slow, very plodding footwork overall. Even her combination developed very slow. I don't really like what I see from her. She got a negative striking differential, definitely, defensively irresponsible. And I think that is really where Chiasson can find success. Also, you got to add in the fact that, a lot of times you see, Ketlen, she throws these big loopy hooks, and I just think that is where Chiasson, with the 4-inch reach advantage, and is going to land those straight shots down the pike and really look to utilize that jab. And I think it's going to cause a lot of problems for the slow plodding footwork of Ketlen Vieira here. So this is a spot here where I do like Chiasson. I think the minus 115 number is good. So I'm taking Macy to get the job done. And the last one here we're going to talk about is going to be where is it? It's going to be Billy Ray Goff He is minus 350. On the comeback here, we've got Ramiz Brahimaj plus 275. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into this one here, but this line is wide. There's no doubt about it. Now, I do believe Billy Ray gets the job done here, but we're going to give a little bit of a better angle and a better price on this spot. Now, you have Brahimaj here, who is really a first round or bust kind of fighter. He's got 11 victories, 10 are in the first round. The other one's in the second round. So this guy early on, he's going to go for it. He's only been in the second round or beyond 3 times in his career. So this guy just doesn't really, it's early or it's not for him overall. Now, one of his recent fights, he got absolutely manhandled against Thimba Grimbo. I thought that was a terrible look for him overall, especially for a guy who's a high-level jiu-jitsu player, was taken down, 5 times. You had Thimba, who had about 10 minutes of control time, just absolutely dominated. You had Brahimaj, who landed 3 significant strikes over the 3 rounds. Just an embarrassing performance for him overall. Yes, he came back and knocked out Mickey Gall, but that's Mickey Gall. But Brahimaj also has terrible cardio. And I think that, yes, he's got the high level jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't have the wrestling, doesn't have the ability to really kind of dictate the pace, get the fight to the ground when he wants to. I think he struggles with that. Also, I don't think he's got the cardio to really push that kind of wrestling pace. I think that's going to cause a lot of problems as well. And as this fight goes longer, the less and less dangerous Brahimaj does get. And I think that's really where you're going to see Billy Ray find a lot of success here. I think he's a harder hitter. I think that he has the ability, he's well-rounded, where if this fight does get to the ground, he's going to stay safe. But I do think that as this fight goes on, and as Brahimaj starts to slow down, that is really where Billy Ray, who comes forward, who's aggressive, who's going to throw big shots overall, I think is really going to hurt him and put him away here. So I think it's either going to be a knockout or it's going to be a club and sub type of situation here, but still getting a very good price here at some books. You've got inside the distance for Billy Ray is sitting around plus 100. I think that's a great price here overall, and that is what we were taking. So we're taking Billy Ray Goff to get the job done inside the distance at plus 100. So there you have it for my plays for UFC Vegas 107. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Have plays up right now, and I cannot wait for next weekend. Massive card. Can't wait to talk about it on the show. So let's get it done, and let's cash.